All right, I think we're good.
I think you're good to go, Tess. And first couple of slides are intro anyway, so any latecomers should be able to catch up pretty easily.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We are so excited to chat with you about how these three institutions have worked to streamline FERPA management on their campuses, specifically to improve retention and reduce workload. This is an amazing group of panelists. We had the opportunity to meet last week and hear some of their stories. And I know that they're going to have a lot of really great things for you to bring back to your campus as well. So just a few logistics. Lines are on mute. And so if you have any questions, just be sure to use the chat feature. We do have a campus ESP staff member in the background who's monitoring that. Also, we are recording this session, so we will send a copy of the recording as well as the slide deck to everyone who's registered. So just an overview of the agenda. We're going to do some introductions so you can hear all the amazing folks on the call. Also, we'll talk very briefly about campus ESP. We'll do an overview of what the FERPA management tool is, and we also want to hear from y'all and kind of what you're experiencing currently and what's happening on your campus. We're also going to learn from some customer perspectives from UAB, Texas State, and Hanover. And then we're going to have plenty of time for Q&A as well. So just don't forget to utilize that chat feature if you do have any questions. So I will kick us off with introductions. My name is Tess Jenkins. I serve as the Director of Account Management at Campus ESP. So if any of you folks on this call are current customers of Campus ESP, you're probably very know who your account manager is. We're really here to ensure you're getting the most use out of your platform. I'm particularly excited to be hosting this session today as I was a former user of the product. So I spent about 7 years at Auburn University where I oversaw parent and family programs, and we leverage the FERPA management module. So definitely we'll be speaking today too from just personal experience, but I'm going to leave the majority of the show to our amazing panelists. So I will turn it over to Dr. Jones to introduce himself.
Sure, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Jones. As the slide notes, I serve as the Vice President of Student Affairs at the University of Alabama in Birmingham. We have over 21,500 students, just to give you guys some context. And additionally, as the Vice President of Student Affairs, I oversee 22 departments and/or functional areas.
And good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Martha Freire-Cuellar. I'm the University Registrar at Texas State University. And our campus is located smack in the middle of San Antonio and Austin. So we're in Central Texas. And we have an enrollment hitting close to the 37,000 students here at Texas State.
Great. Thank you, Martha. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Lowe-Schneider. I'm the Associate Provost for Student Outcomes at Hanover College. I'm so glad that you're all with us today. Hanover is located in southeastern Indiana on the Ohio River, and we have just about 1,000 students, so a lot smaller institution than our other panelists, and I hope that I can provide some insights into how we've leveraged this at a small school.
Great. And I know everyone just kind of gave a little bit of an overview of their respective institutions, but if there's anything to add, I'll just note that we're so appreciative that there's such representation across different departments on campuses, but also very different institutions. So I don't know if anyone has anything else they want to add about their institutions before we get started. All right, well, let's dive in. We do have the obligatory word from our sponsor. So we have such a fun mix of folks on this call today. Some are customers, some are not. So we just want to make sure that everyone's familiar with Campus ESP. We are a family engagement solution. We work with over 300 colleges and universities across the United States and currently serve over 4 million parents and family members. And really how we do that is we work with you. If you think of what the student life cycle looks like, we really work with institutions to match that to support family engagement at each stages of that life cycle. So we offer 4 different module solutions. The first is our family communication module that's really working with students from admit through graduation. On the other side of that, we have a student enrollment module to help institutions increase student yield through leveraging family engagement. Our FERPA management tool that we'll be talking a lot about today, that's really helping with the reducing phone calls to offices and increasing student retention. and rounding that out with a parent giving module, which really helps with cultivating relationships with families to push towards philanthropic efforts. And really, we see campus ESP at the middle of all of that. So what does that support for the student's life cycle look like? So we are a web, mobile, and email-based platform. We work with institutions to engage family members through personalized content. We help nudge their behaviors throughout the process, and then also provide a ton of data and ROI information back to the institutions that we serve. But particularly today, we're going to be talking about the FERPA management tool, and a big mantra at Campus ESP is, what problem are you trying to solve? And what we found when we were looking at establishing the FERPA management tool is that family members are incredibly involved. We actually participated in this study when I was at Auburn when we were looking to purchase the Campus ESP for FERPA management module. And while this stat is that 61% of parents and family members admit, I very specifically like to use the word admit there, to having their students' username and passwords, we were actually at 67%. And I remember going back to my family board of directors and saying, like, hey, if y'all have your username and passwords, like, why is that? And what we found by and large wasn't necessarily that they were just trying to be intrusive of their student records, but there really wasn't an easy opportunity to gather that information for them to really help their student. We also found that a lot of the times institutions were leveraging a manual FERPA form, which really led to more phone calls to the schools and really had FERPA serving as an IT function. Campus ESP came in to really flip the script there. And what we looked at is an electronic FERPA process, which allows for self-service access for families to log in and receive more information. And it also really creates FERPA as a student success function. So what that looks like is we work with institutions to develop an electronic FERPA waiver. So schools get to decide, what do we even want family members to be able to have access to? Families then request access to those records, and then students have to approve those records in order for parents and family members to see them. So if approved, and the approval can be done kind of on an a la carte basis, families will then have access to a student dashboard. And this again allows for families to have more information. They're alerted when information changes on their student's record so that they can help kind of engage in that conversation and really be a partner to the institution in terms of student success and retention. So with this, you'll see we have lots of different tiles here. We have class schedule, aid requirements, holds, but I'd love to pause here and just get some feedback from the panel, because I know each of y'all went through this process of implementing Campus ESP and deciding, you know, what you wanted family members to have access to. So just curious, like, what those conversations looked like on your campus and how you made the decision to decide like what you would want family members to be able to see.
Okay, I'll take a stab at it first. Prior to joining Campus ESP, family members could access their either academic information and or financial information by way of an internal system utilizing Banner. Unfortunately, by creating that homegrown system, there were some deficits in that system. As a for instance, each year a student was enrolled, they had to reactivate their account in order for parents to access it. That was one. The second was, when there was a change in the information within the account, the information did not notify parents and or guardians that the information has changed. And the last piece was, it was an all or nothing approach. Either they had access to all the information or they had access to nothing. No one could pick and choose what information they could access.
And for us here at Texas State, we didn't have a module or a proxy or anything of that sort. So parents were calling, they were emailing and asking for information, specifically in our financial aid office. And parents were able to submit, you know, a document that allowed them access to students' records, but processing those documents was quite a task. And I think what we did was try to answer the questions that we were getting. And so that allowed us to say, okay, we want, you know, schedules and, you know, are they full-time, not full-time? What questions were we getting in our offices, which included registrars, the bursar's office, financial aid office. And that really helped us build out our tiles and what we wanted to view, what we wanted the parents to view and access.
Similar to Martha's answer at Hanover, one of the things that we utilized, we heard from our parent family board that there were too many logins to remember. So when it came time to pay a bill, that was one module and you had to have a password for that. When it came time to view your students' financial aid and process financial aid documents, that was a different password. So we really aimed to streamline, which is one of the things that we like most about the FERPA module, is that it's one-stop shopping. So parents log in with the student's permission and they can see everything there. So that was one aspect. I think the other aspect, and this gets back to the slide that talks about nudging, is that there are things that we need students to do. And I'm sure this is not unique to Hanover's campus. Students don't read their email anymore, right? So if we have a nudge and a student has a hold on their account and they need to take care of that, this way a parent can log in, see that hold, and then ask their student to take that step or to do that nudge. So for example, at Hanover, our returning student deposit is due today. If a student hasn't paid that deposit by 5 p.m. today, when their parent logs into the FERPA module, they'll see a hold. It has the returning student deposit and it links to the email that we sent students, so parents know what next steps to take. So it's really thinking about how we can collaborate with our parents as partners in getting those nudges that are necessary for student success.
Yeah, I love all of those answers. And another thing I was going to ask Martha in particular, y'all leverage this too for VA benefits, correct? So y'all have created an additional tile kind of based on some of the questions that y'all are receiving, right?
Right. And along with what Katie mentioned is we were trying to get parents to support and help. And one of that group that we have is our VA benefits area. Here at Texas State, we provide benefits for almost 10% of our population. So that equates to about 3,000 students. And those parents were calling our offices and we were hitting them up with well, we don't have access to give you certain information. And most parents don't like that answer. So we now provide them the tools needed. And in that tile for the VA benefits, we give them checklists. So if you see an item that's still required, they know exactly what to do, and we link them out to our online tool where parents can upload the information that is still lacking to process their benefits.
100%. And honestly, I remember one of the biggest game changers for us was that proactive communication, which I know we'll talk about momentarily too. So now we really want to hear from other folks on the call. I'm going to pull up this presentation. If you look at the top, you can just do this on your browser or either on your phone. But we really want to understand kind of where everyone in the room is. So what are you currently using to leverage FERPA management waivers? I'll give a couple seconds for answers to start coming in. And Mel, if I'm supposed to refresh or do anything, please pop on and let me know.
I expected the paper forms to be the winner.
I know, that's what if we were taking bets on it, I would think that as well. Okay, we're getting some answers in the chat. Paper form just came through the chat.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not populating for you, because it did this morning when we tested it.
That is a-okay. Well, feel free to type your responses in the chat. Would love to hear from y'all. I'm seeing other answers come in as well right now in terms of kind of what y'all are leveraging for your current system. Lots of paper forms coming through.
Chat paper form is winning. So
yeah, I know. You were right, Martha. Winner. And then also too, I'm just curious, let me click over. If there's any issues or problems you're trying to solve on your campus that you're trying to move away from with maybe your current system. So whether that be improving student retention, if you're wanting to reduce phone calls to your office, or even just administrative time savings. Look at this in the chat as well. Love the answer, Lynn Ann, all the above. Yes, I totally resonate with that. Awesome. So y'all can monitor that in the chat as well, but definitely it's helpful just to kind of see the variety of the resources different folks are using. And I'll click back over here, and some of y'all mentioned this. I know Dr. Jones, you mentioned in particular your homegrown system, but I am curious, like, what were y'all using prior to making the swap to campus ESP? And I think y'all kind of alluded to this in some of your answers, but any other additional information to include, and maybe even, why you decided to make the switch?
I can jump in there. At Hanover, we were using a paper form. The form itself was buried on our registrar's website. We gave a nod to it at orientation, but students had to seek and find, and then print, and then bring the physical form to the registrar's office. So I think that we were definitely operating under compliant and not collaborative. We really moved this direction to make this more of a collaborative process and just straightforward.
Yeah, and I think for us too, the paper form came in so many from different avenues. We were taking a lot of paper forms at NSO, advisors were taking it, financial aid was taking it, we were getting it emailed, fax, mailed, snail mail. I mean, under the doors during non-working hours. It was just all over, and it was not hidden. Everyone had one, and sometimes we would get unupdated forms, like old forms that were out that people still had printed. Are like, we're not using that one, we updated it, and that was really tough too, because where are they getting this one? So for us, forms and providing an efficient process, because that process was not very time efficient. If a parent came to NSO and they were across campus visiting and doing their stuff, and they decided to come to financial aid and ask questions, well, financial aid was asking for their form, and they said, well, I just turned it in. Well, like an hour ago, and it still had to make it to our office, and it had to be processed and updated and tagged to the student. And we use BDMS, and it just wasn't time efficient as to what the parents needed and wanted, and campus needed and wanted.
Yeah, for sure. And then I guess too, like, what maybe was the straw that broke the camel's back for y'all? Like, what was it that really made you want to make that switch to leveraging the FERPA management tool with campus ESP?
To me, in general, there's a couple of things that weighed in on my decision. First and foremost, often we're getting complaints from parents. And so when we were digging in and processing that complaint, what we're finding is that our students, their son and daughter, only shared bits and pieces of the information. So the parents was calling to follow up with only a part of the information and not all the information. So that's one piece. Second piece is, as I process what FERPA is, there's a tendency to use FERPA as a weapon. It's not a sword, it's not a shield. FERPA is a process in which, yes, you're protecting student information, but more importantly, you're providing a process in which the information can be shared with appropriate parties. The other piece in terms of why the switch, just like any leader, just like any parent or guardian, right? Your ability to make key decisions, informed decisions, is based on the information that you have. If you don't have that information, how can you make the best decision either for your family or for your son and daughter? And more importantly, as we try to dig down in terms of what is contributing to student success, having more information in the proper hands, i.e. the parents or the guardians, as well as the students, is the key to their success. So as we think of all those things in consideration, more information, you're more informed. As you've been more informed, you can make better decisions. So that's what led us to switch, especially when FERPA, again, it's not a weapon, it's not a sword, it's not a shield. It's a process in which you're protecting student information, but at the same time, you're allowing the information be shared with appropriate parties.
Mm-hmm.
I think for us, like I mentioned, the efficient process with a large campus and many stakeholders that needed that information, that were requiring, authorization from the parents to even give them, small tips of information. Just providing that avenue for parents to get that info themselves and reduce our phone calls and reduce our training and reduce, just barriers and challenges that we were faced when we were doing the paper format.
I think similar to both John and Martha, when we first examined this, a question that our president asked was, what barriers do we have to student success? And one of the barriers that we identified was that we simply made it too hard for parents and families to access the information that they needed to be that key partner and supporter in the decision. So, or in supporting their students. So how could we do that in a very streamlined function? So for us, it really was looking at how do we remove a barrier? And frankly, at a small school, we don't have a lot of staff. So if we can use a tool to make work smarter, not harder, right? And so this does all of that for us. And that's been the beautiful thing for us.
Yeah, I think driving efficiency is definitely kind of a theme throughout. I think something else that I'd love for y'all to touch on that I know we talked about on the prep call was I'll say that students and families are just changing. When FERPA was created years ago, it was a very different world than what we live in today, where, families have total access K through 12 as to what's happening in their students' lives. And, there's no magic potion that a parent drinks between graduation and orientation that changes that. So curious too, just y'all's thoughts on maybe some of the shifting dynamics of family involvement and, moving towards a system like this to really establish parents as partners.
Well,
I think. No, go ahead,
John.
Katie. Go ahead. No.
Well, I think along with that point, it really is about helping the students establish agency. So the bonus of the FERPA module, and I know we're going to get to this, but is the student has to give permission for each of those things. So if I'm working with a student and they're like, you know what, my mom and dad rode me all through high school about my grades. I don't really want them to see access to my grades, but I'd like them to have access to my account, right? Then we talk about that. And then we talk about what are the tools that you could provide your parents. I hear what you're saying about your grades, but how can your parents be partners in supporting you in this? So I really think that it helps us have that conversation about agency, both with parents and with students, where in, maybe 10 years ago, we were saying, hey, parents, it's time to let them go. They're 18. Now we say, okay, have these conversations, talk about what role you want your parents or guardians to play in your college and how they can support you with that. But I really like that tool of agency. The student now gets to decide, and the parents need to kind of make that transition, but it's not such a sharp cutoff. Like, sorry, they're 18, bye, you can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
Sure. For me, I like the ability or the redundancy in communicating resources on campus. I think many universities out there do a phenomenal job of sharing with their students all the wealth of information and resources that students can take advantage of to be successful. However, sometimes our students miss those key moments or that key information by also sharing that information with parents and guardians. So when son and daughter call home complaining, mom, dad, guardian can say, no, they do have that office. They do have that information. They do have those resources on campus that you can take advantage of as well. So I think redundancy in communicating to the students, to the families of all the different resources on campus and which also contribute to student success.
And I think, as a parent myself of a 10-year-old and a 22-year-old, it was a hard process to be kept in the loop while my oldest daughter was in school and having access to, tools that the schools provided, like charms, where we were kept up to date. They were missing a library book, and we would get that information as well. Their books, their assignments. Those parents now are used to that. When I went to school, my parents didn't know until I brought that report card home. But now parents have tools that the schools are providing, and they're used to that. And although this doesn't provide, when their assignments are due, but it does provide key information that helps that parent support their child throughout their career here at the university. And I think it's very important, especially, first gen parents that may have that hesitation and don't know that they could call and ask, well, now they don't have to go through that awkwardness, like, what should I do? We're providing that info for them. All they need is to, log on and check it out. So I think that also helps, with those barriers that some of those parents could have.
Yeah, I think that really is a perfect example. I'm going to pull up some of these examples from each of y'all's institutions, but just what that proactive communication can look like. And, for those of y'all on the call, this is a takeaway, regardless of what FERPA management system you use, or if you're exploring campus ESP. I do think the proactive communication here is where you really can see improvements in terms of phone calls you're receiving, or even in some of those student success initiatives. Katie, in particular, I was going to chat with you about. I know y'all just released this midterm grades announcement, I believe on Sunday. So this is very fresh, but you're already seeing really great results. I'd love for you to talk to us a little bit more, because I think this was a little bit of a collaborative effort with a few different departments, correct?
Absolutely. So we just had midterm grades and our students had winter break, and the last day to withdraw from a class is tomorrow. No, today's only Wednesday, Friday, the 10th. And one of the things that we run into sometimes when a student has a barrier like that is being aware of what the resources are. So how can a parent support them? So we sent this nudge, and we've seen a lot of success with Sunday opens. So we had a 70% open rate on this email, and we sent a nudge that said, hey, your students received midterm grades. Here's how you can link to those if you'd like to, but there are 2 resources that we want you to be aware of. Here's the Learning Center. If your student's struggling, we encourage them to come in and use a tutor. Or if they've found that this course is simply not going to work for them this term, Friday is the deadline. So it's important to have a conversation with them. So it's really a great way of leveraging that partnership. Here's the resource on campus. Here's that nudge. The deadline is Friday. Have a conversation as a family and come back ready to make those decisions this week.
Yeah, that's spot on. And, honestly, too, a big component of this is the results that we've seen with student success and retention. And I'm going to walk through each of your institutions and some of the results that we've seen. But I think involving families as partners in that proactive way. So I think I mentioned this earlier, but in case I missed it, families are alerted when changes happen to students' accounts. So it really is kind of that involvement in those key make it or break it moments. And then really, as all the panelists have said, it's more informative, right? So it's helping students create agency while families are there to support them through it. So while we know there's a number of factors that contribute to student success and retention, we particularly looked at institutional retention rates versus those students who have a family member connected to them through campus ESP, and just saw some positive correlations. So I'll walk through each of these, but Dr. Jones, I don't know if you have anything to add from the UAB perspective in terms of how you've seen family involvement increase your student success and retention.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly, if you look at this particular slide, you see that there was a slight increase between the institutional rate versus first-time, four-time students. Be mindful, too, that the data set that we're looking at is from 2020 to 2021. So, and we joined Campus ESP the fall of 2019. So this is roughly a year and a half. And we went from 1,900 parents having access to student information to roughly 2,600. So as you see the increase of families having access to information, subsequently that shows that there was an improvement in terms of retention rates. So we're trusting that if we had more current data, that there you would see a significant increase as well in terms of first-time, four-time students being retained, certainly for 2021, 21, 22, and the like.
Yeah, we're excited to update this study once we have some of those results back. Martha, I mean, Texas State numbers were wild. I remember when we pulled these originally and we went back to like double and triple check like 6 times because we were like, holy cow, this is a huge impact in student retention. But I know you've attributed a lot of this to getting families in the system and creating access for families. So talk to me a little bit about y'all's process there.
Right. And so, obviously Campus ESP is a partner in our other initiatives also that we have for retention, but particularly with Campus ESP and the tool, what we recently started doing is inviting admitted parents to the tool so that they have a checklist of items that are still pending. When a student actually enrolls into new student orientation, that provides us, a point in time where we know, okay, these kids are more likely coming. So we want to make sure that these parents are in the tool. So we go and we look and see, what parents have already signed up and who hasn't, that has their child already signed up in a new student orientation. And we will load those parents in there and invite them and send them communication. Hey, this is a tool that we're providing for you free of charge. We've partnered with our parent and family relations team, and they also provide content for those new parents to Texas State. And so we're really targeting our new classes, our new freshman classes, and building our user group through them, knowing that we'll see the impact of having them in the tool within 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, 100%. And then Katie, in particular with Hanover, I know y'all have done a lot of intentional outreach specifically for first generation families. So I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, because we obviously are seeing this play out in some of your retention results as well.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Tess. I think that one of the real benefits of the Campus ESP tool is that you can bifurcate your groups. So at Hanover, we have about 1/3 of our students are Pell eligible students, and about 28% are first generation students. So one of the things that we do when parents sign up for Campus ESP is they can select first generation as a group that they belong to. And we see those open rates, they're about 10 to 15% higher than our overall parent open rates, and we're able to target specific messages. So for example, when FAFSA filing is coming up, we targeted a special streamlined message to just first generation parents to say, hey, we have this workshop March 1st. We really encourage you to come. We let all parents know about it, but we did a little special messaging to our first generation parents. So I think that there's lots of ways to tailor the tool. When you my staff will tell you I'm really emphasize data-informed decision-making. So when you notice a gap in your retention of a segment of your population, you can leverage this tool to support that population. And I think that's really where we saw some gains.
Yeah. And we have seen this across the board. So we do have a study. This is on our website. So if anyone wants to pull this or request access to this afterwards, I know we'd be happy to follow up, but we definitely see a positive correlation really across the board. And, obviously these numbers range. Some of that's dependent upon the institutional retention rate as well. But on average, we're finding that students with a family member connected through Campus ESP is retained on an 8% higher average. And we've also noticed that the implications are even higher for students of color, specifically Hispanic and Black or African American families. Martha, I know this was a big result for Texas State. I'm curious if you have any insights to this or additional thoughts to include here.
Just to include that we are an HSI institution. And so we have a lot of initiatives to target those groups as well.
Yeah, and we saw very similar results. Drexel University is also another one of our partners, and we saw very similar results in terms of retention for students of color as well. So definitely we want to focus on kind of that higher impact there. So shifting gears and as we're winding down, I'll just note a reminder, if you do have questions for the panelists, please feel free to type those in the chat. But another benefit that we find with the FERPA management tool is it's helping save institutions time. So if any of you on this call are partners of Campus ESP and have logged into the system in the last couple of weeks, we had a poll pop up asking, have you found that Campus ESP has helped reduce phone calls? And we filtered those results specifically by the partners who've answered who had FERPA management. And we found that 78% of those schools did say that it helped reduce phone calls. So curious on this call if anyone wants to speak to this or speak to some of the reduction of time that you've spent in Campus ESP versus your prior system.
I'll go, because I always tell people that this tool is like having a staff member that doesn't call in sick, that never needs time off, that doesn't need any training, because they already know what to provide and what not to provide. As far as reducing the number of calls, yes, we've also reduced the number of staff members with, with the turnover that we have since the pandemic and losing staff members. We would not be able to keep up with phone calls if it were not for this tool. And I'm not just speaking on my office, the Office of the University Registrar's Office, but also our stakeholder offices, which are, again, Bursar's office. This tool is answering, what my student owes. This tool is answering financial aid questions as to what is still pending, if we're up for verification. It gives them a checklist of that information, and it points them to where they need to, submit the paperwork or upload documents that are still missing. Likewise, for my VA team, it's reducing their phone calls, because if a parent goes in there and can double check, as you mentioned, Tess, it'll send out notifications. So if you have a student that now has a new hold, it's going to send you a notification and say, Elena has a new hold, and you log in and you can say, Elena's my oldest. Elena has a parking ticket. Well, if I'm a really nice parent, I can go see, how do you pay for that parking ticket? Elena, get on it. But it's really reducing the phone calls, because we're already sending them a message, an announcement to their email that says something has changed, and then that triggers the parent to go in and look, as opposed to waiting until there's an issue because we waited too long to take care of that hold.
Sure. If I can quickly add to that, not only is it reducing the number of phone calls, also it's reducing the frustration that the parents or the family members may be receiving, because A, they didn't get the information that they're looking for, or B, there was a handoff. Okay, so this office can respond to it, so they hand it off to another office, right? So as a parent, if I have to make that second, third, or fourth phone call, now I'm getting frustrated, right? Now the institution is not as responsive. So I say it's a win-win, and not only the reduction of phone calls, but also is eliminating the potential of frustration from the parents or families.
Yeah, that's great. And I also too wanted to share these two stats from the University of West Georgia, which is a partner of ours. We just presented with West Georgia at Sacro a few weeks ago now, and they try to quantify this a little bit more. And what they found was that it was a 93% decrease in the number of paper forms they were processing. So they went from 120 paper forms to 8 forms a month. Also 38 full work days of staff time saved, which again, everyone on every college campus is overworked and wears multiple hats. So when you think of being able to give staff time back, that really is a huge implication here too. All right, moving into our last question before the Q&A section. And Martha, you just alluded to this too with some of the departments. I know we've talked about this, but what I have found is FERPA really is multifaceted on campuses, right? So lots of stakeholders, lots of owners of this. I'm curious what other departments y'all have partnered with Campus ESP for FERPA management, and maybe how you've gotten them excited to be on board with a system like this.
Right, and our key group of stakeholders consisted of, obviously, our office. We were sort of the champions of this implementation. The registrar's office, financial aid was a big key stakeholder because of the abundance of calls that they've receive. Our bursar's office, our VA benefits team. Who else am I not thinking of here? One of the partners that we also have, again, is our parent and family relations, and they deal with parents more often. Where they were trying to answer questions too. Now they can provide this, access to this tool. And also, as they provide content, similar to what Dr. Jones was mentioning, when our president's office or important information comes out to campus, that team is copying it over and sending it out to parents as well. So they're in the know. There's no need for the student to forward the email, or us as parents, depending on that student, to forward important information. We're already copying that high level important information that goes out to campus and students, and it's also being sent out to parents. But those would be our stakeholders and who is involved in that process.
Sure. If I can quickly add, there's two important aspects. One, when the campus leadership president's office, is sharing important information, and certainly, as according to FERPA, to connected parties. We use ESP, campus ESP, to share their information. The other office I want to highlight as well is one-stop office, our one-stop office. And that's a single point of professional integrated services to students. You get your academic records, you get your financial aid, you get your registration, you get your student accounting, you get your one card. So there's a one location for students to get all those services. The benefit of campus ESP is that when a student visits that particular office, our staff members do not have to access multiple platforms to get the information. The information is right there in one source, which is, efficiency, save time to the students, save time to the staff as well. So that's another piece of helping us manage FERPA.
I'll just add two groups that I haven't heard mentioned in this call that have been, aside from everything that everybody said on our campus, our housing office. So when there are concerns about fines perhaps, or things like that, so that's been a benefit to them and reduced calls there. But I also think that our career services office has really benefited from this, because at Hanover, students have to complete a certain number of credits before they can enroll in internships. So when parents have questions like that, they can log in and see that and already have that information. So those are two services that I haven't heard mentioned from our other partners on the call.
That's great. Well, I feel like we have covered so much while simultaneously barely scratching the surface with the tool and all of the ideas out there to just help streamline this process more for you on your campus. So there are a few upcoming events, and then also our research blog where you can find more resources. But if anyone's planning on attending ACRO in Colorado in a few weeks, we will be there. We also have a summit series, the first of which is going to take place the day before NASPA. So if anyone's going to be in town for NASPA, we have some sessions specifically related to student success and retention. And then our research and blog, which I do believe that Mel posted the FERPA research study in the chat if anyone wants to pull that down, but this is the other space where you can grab that. So with that, we will go over to Q&A, and I can stop sharing my screen so I can see our faces bigger, but just want to note one more time that if you do have a question, please submit that in the chat feature so that we can see that, because we cannot see y'all. So Mel, I know I've seen some notifications come through.
Yeah, a lot of just fun feedback from everybody, but definitely a couple of questions I want to pose to our panelists here. So the first is about if Campus ESP actually offers any multilingual services. And I think this is not just a question about, is it something that we offer, yes or no, but how does that play into the FERPA management process if you need to provide clarity around the rules or regulations of FERPA in another language? And I'm going to actually kind of draw attention to you, Martha, since I know as an HSI, Texas State does a lot of their stuff in bilingual methods. So if you have particular experience here, we'd love to hear it.
I know Jennifer Wood's on the call too, and I wish she was here to provide some of that content. But I know that she's working on providing our Spanish-speaking parents like a calendar and information. And I just asked if she had a community that was in Spanish. I don't remember if that's the case, but I do know that it will toggle over to Spanish on Chrome. And so Jennifer just put in the chat, yes, a Spanish community.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer. Love you.
All right, and I do a number of questions here that I'm going to try and kind of combine, but it's mostly about Campus ESP integration. So there's people asking about how it works with Banner. I'm seeing Genzabar, I'm seeing Slate. So I'm not sure which different programs you all use. I can say quickly, yes, we do integrate with all of those platforms as a rule, but do any of you want to speak to how you are putting information from Campus ESP into those other campus-wide systems or campus systems into Campus ESP?
UAB, we use Banner. It was an easy transition to that, so it was no issue whatsoever. It was more of a challenge to get campus buy-in to say yes to this platform versus the integrating to Banner. So once we got everyone at the table and got a yes from everyone. It was easy after that.
I cannot emphasize enough how easy this is. Like it is, Campus ESP does all the work for you. They upload the emails, they appear in August or July or whatever date you tell them that you want the new emails to appear, they're there. And, there may be a few little bumps you have to work through when you do your initial integration, just, because of APIs and all those kinds of things. But once you get through those, I never think about it. I do nothing. Campus ESP does it all, and it works quite well. And we have Power Fades, Genzabar, Slate, and CashNet.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
We're uploading our data on a nightly feed. So we ensure parents are aware of that because it isn't synced, like on demand. It is a nightly feed. So as of last night, if you had a hold and you cleared it, at 8 a.m. and your mom saw the email at 9, and so there might be a slight timing issue, but our information from Banner is feeding into Campus ESP. And I believe we have one field, the confidential marker, that's important, because if a student in Banner has deemed it as confidential, that's one that is feeding to Campus ESP back end administrative site.
Thank you, guys. And I know I'm actually seeing a couple more questions with other different tools. And I'm going to do a slight plug here, which is a little off, but in addition to ACRO in a couple of weeks, we do also have members of our team that are going to be at Ellucian Live, which is the company that supports Banner and Colleague. And I'm also seeing Power Campus mentioned here. So if you're going to be there, it's another place for you to potentially learn how we work with those systems that you may already be using. And then another question I have here is a question we get quite often, and that's how are you collecting these parents' contact and email informations and getting them into Campus ESP so that you can even do this entire process? Where are you finding the best ways to get parents to sign up?
I can talk to that. We do an automatic upload from our CRM, our admission, which we use Slate. So that automatically comes in. But the other thing that we do is we start mid-spring doing a push to our prospective and incoming parents. But we also do it to current parents that may have just missed out and not signed up. And just send the link. A really simple tool is we do a pin that has we have the parents.hanover.edu address, which links to Campus ESP. So we do a pin and give it away. And that's a great way to just a simple reminder. And that's part of something that we give out in new student orientation to parents.
In addition to that, certainly we do some of that Katie just indicated, but also we take advantage of orientation as well. So when the students are in the room, we have a separate session for parents as well. So we communicate Campus ESP to both parties. In addition, when we have those parents in that room by themselves, we also share that. And we have computers, laptops right outside that particular ballroom so they can sign up as well.
I think it take a little more of an intrusive approach where I'm pulling the data from the system as far as like the parent email. When a student applies, they provide a parent email. So we're, sending communication out to those parents. When we initially implemented Jennifer Woods, again, on our parent and family relations team, was a great asset because she was using another tool and already had parent information. So she let us have all that parent information, and we just went in and loaded those parents in. So anywhere we can find a parent email, we're going to grab it and we're going to send them an invite to the tool.
I think the other thing we should say, though, is it doesn't only have to be parents. I think particularly when you have students that are from families that maybe don't have traditional parenting situation, it can be anybody. So if your aunt, if your guidance counselor, anybody can create an account in Campus ESP. And I think that's a really nice thing. We have a lot of grandparents who don't do the FERPA link, but who just use Campus ESP to stay informed about what's going on campus.
I love that, Katie. We actually see a lot of schools will call them supporters. So it feels a little bit more inclusive, and it really just counts for anybody who's helping that student through their journey. That is really all the questions that I have currently. So unless anyone has any last minute ones that they want to slide into the chat, if anybody on the panel wants to give some closing thoughts on advice they would give to somebody who's thinking about reworking their FERPA management process, and then we can start to wrap up.
The one thing that I would say in a time of constrained resources on many of our campuses, and this is something that we did before we engaged this tool, is you can look at where you're spending money in other ways that this tool might help you maximize. And that was really what convinced the leadership in our business office to support the cost of this. Because when we looked at all the things that we were doing to make it easier for parents and families to access student records that cost money, whether that was an app, whether that was this or that, that really made sense. So I think that that's a tool that was helpful for us just in terms of being able to find the resources to support it.
Sure. Katie is absolutely right. I'm looking at how can you reduce redundancy and increase efficiency, as well as contribute to student success. So it's a win-win-win.
In our office, we believed in the tool, and our office took the bite, and we in the registrar's office pay for the tool using transcript revenue sources. So it is, you know, it pays for itself.
I'll also reshare my screen again so everyone, oh, if I can find it, maybe I can't. Let me stop sharing it. It tends to find its way away from my screen, but let's do this. Okay, can everyone see that okay? Amazing. So did just want to leave all the panelists' email addresses as well. So if there was a question that you were unable to get to today, or if there's anything in particular that you want to speak to one of the panelists about, they were gracious enough to leave their email addresses. So also wanted to note this, and when we send out the slide deck, of course, this will be included with that as well.
All right, well, then I think we're going to wrap it up for today. I want to say thank you to Martha, to Katie, to Dr. Jones, and to Tess, my wonderful colleague, for everything that you guys shared today from your personal experiences. I'm hoping that we will get the recording and a copy of the deck and all the information, as well as those 2 surveys that we couldn't get to display live. I pulled them already. I do have them. So all of that will be sent to all of our registrants by Friday morning. So keep an eye out for that to share with your colleagues on campus. And again, if you have any questions, please do reach out. Thank you all for spending some time with us today.
Thank y'all.